So that's going to wrap up topic one of the Rumble. Glad you had a good time. And yeah, we'll have to see when they come back, I guess, for
I
your
know.
next big event. But we're going to stay on the topic of wrestling, everybody, and we're going to go a little bit deeper into Corey's history with wrestling. So, Corey, you alluded to it with like 2014 NXT kind of getting you back into the fold, or I'm assuming back into the fold. When did you start becoming a wrestling fan?
So it's very funny. I don't know that most people would know the like exact day that they got into wrestling. And I guess I actually probably will know the
Ooh,
exact day
okay.
that I got into wrestling. Um, Actually, I take it back. I can't remember the other guy's name. So leading into it was definitely 2006. It was at the beginning of '06. Very specifically, if you remember the storyline of Kane leading up to See No Evil, where he did the May 19th stuff. And it was like this whole thing. If you don't remember, if anybody watching doesn't remember, Kane would in storylines or whatever, they alluded to maybe that was the day that Undertaker burned down their house. Like it was like this weird thing. He would be in the middle of a match, the lights would flicker, and on the PA you would just hear people whispering like May 19th, May
Mm.
19th, or what is this whole thing? At the same time, concurrently, the Mr. McMahon Shawn Michaels feud is happening, and it is in the throes of this feud leading up to WrestleMania 22. And so Vince McMahon put the put the match. Hey, this is going to be Kane versus. I can't remember his name for the life of me. It's one of those things that I've known this trivia forever in my life. He was one half of that of the Canadian tag team. That was their whole gimmick, is we're a Canadian tag team, and Shawn Michaels was the special guest referee. And I can't remember exactly the circumstances of how my brother called me into the room, or if I just walked in there and he was like, "Hey," or if I walked in there and I was like, "Oh, what is this?" But I definitely went in there and saw Rob Conway, maybe.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think it was Rob Conway, very
Conway, was
specifically.
it Dupree with him, or was it somebody else?
Yeah, versus Rob Conway. Heck yes, Shawn Michaels. Um, There we go. I want to see the exact day that this came out. May 1st,
Mm.
2006 was the exact day that I got into wrestling. And so um, I don't know why. Okay, so 2006, I would have been 10
Okay.
exactly. So it was just my exact type of humor for some reason, where Shawn Michaels he had to wear a shirt that said May 19th on it. And so that was like the whole thing. Oh, well, Kane's going to ignore Rob Conway. Kane's going to attack Shawn Michaels. Oh, I'm Vince McMahon. I'm evil. And I like to touch people. and so, and
Topical.
so, and so Shawn Michaels immediately super kicks Rob Conway and puts the May 19th shirt on Rob Conway. And so Kane comes out and is like, "What the fuck, man? Like, why are you wearing that shirt?" And he starts beating him up. And Shawn Michaels starts doing the thing as the referee. He like grabs a trash can. He's on the apron. He's like holding the trash can, and Kane grabs the trash can and hits. And Shawn Michaels like, "Where'd the trash can go?" And he's doing very basic mime humor, and it's just cracking me up at 10 years old. I'm like, I like the cut of this guy's jib, and so I'm like, I'm in now. And I can't remember what like kept going. I remember very vividly. This is also the lead up to DX's reunion. I remember very vividly. I can never find this match, but there was a tornado like tag team match or something like that. Maybe it was a fatal four way of Triple H and Rob Van Dam and Edge and John Cena on a Raw. And I can't remember exactly how it happened, but like there was a very specific moment where Triple H and Shawn Michaels meet on the stage, and they like share a glance, and everybody's like, "Whoa!" And so that was like a whole thing. And then after WrestleMania, Vince starts turning on Triple H, and then all that happens. And then DX is there, which is great for a 10-year-old. Like that's everything a 10-year-old could want, is the DX revival. I wasn't there for original DX, but I was the exact demographic for DX's revival at the moment. And so I had the DX shirts. We were crotch chopping on the playground. It was great. It was a fantastic time. And so from there on, like I was in. I remember, I don't know if you know the video chain.
Oh, you cut out. Hold on. Huh, you muted on me. There we go. Now you're back.
All right, I'm back.
Yeah, I can hear you. Oh, maybe not.
Oh no!
You're backwards.
If I hit my mic thing, it like completely changes it.
Okay, now again.
It's a big integral weakness in my setup. And so anyway, Hastings had WrestleMania 22 out, and I remember it like the back of my hand, where we brought it up to the cash register, and the guy was like, "We can't sell you this."
Oh.
And my dad was like, "Well, it's out there." And the guy's like, "Sorry, this is breaking street date. Like, it shouldn't have been out there." And my dad was like, "You're gonna sell us that DVD?" And he's like, "I literally can't." And he's like, "The system won't let us." And so like we ended up getting WrestleMania 22 later at Walmart. And so it was just this whole thing. We had a whole get together for WrestleMania 23 at our house, and it was just this whole thing. So since 2006, I was like super into it, and at the same time, we got into TNA. I don't remember how we got into TNA, but somehow we got into TNA, and so we more transitioned into a TNA household from a WWE household. And so, especially with the advent, well, really around 2008, both of the companies kind of started losing ground in my household.
Okay.
Where by 2009, WWE was just not even spoken of, and probably the same of TNA. Honestly, by 2009, 2010, TNA was kind of in a weird place, and so we had kind of dropped out definitely by 09 and 10. And then the pipe bomb happens in 2011, and I'm back in for maybe like a month or something, like not long at all. But the pipe bomb, like it did many people, me and my brother were like, we gotta tune back in, see what happens. And then looking back, it felt like so long that Punk was doing the cool thing of like always going to Comic-Con, and he's like harassing Triple H at Comic-Con, where he's got the belt in the fridge after Money in the Bank. He's like, I don't work here anymore. And they're like, for some reason, looking back, my brother and I thought that it was like a 3-month program where there wasn't a WWE champion and they're like working on it or whatever, but like CM Punk's parading around. And then looking back, like it's legitimately a 1-month thing.
Yeah.
Or like 3 weeks. It's so fast. And we dropped back off again. And at some point in there, my brother picked back up on like overseas things, and I picked up on WWE around 2004, late 13, early 14, because I caught the beginning. I caught like the very beginning of the Yes movement, right after, because there was like all the, there was like the Wyatt family stuff, and there was I remember very vividly the night where they were doing the Randy Orton. I think it was Orton had just won both the titles, and the crowd was like hijacking Raw.
Sure.
And they had to acknowledge Daniel Bryan in front, and it was like totally unscripted before like the weird take over Raw thing.
Yeah.
But like that brought me back in, and I've pretty much been back in since, because then you had like the NXT stuff that you could really fall back on, and NXT was doing wonderful things around 2014, and that's when NXT really started kicking up, and yeah, so it's been kind of a bumpy ride over the years, and then especially with AEW's advent, I have found a totally new thing. Like I alluded to it earlier, but my brother and I really don't watch weekly WWE anymore. I keep up with the Big Four for sure, and I watch pretty much daily. There's 2 things that I watch on a daily basis, which is video game news and wrestling news. So even though I don't watch the product, I absorb it through like Going in Raw. I really like Wrestle Talk, and those are my big 2, is Going in Raw and Wrestle Talk. I'll watch both of those. Wrestle Talk's definitely more digestible, and you can watch a 10-minute video or whatever and kind of catch up on everything. But yeah, I still love the business and everything. And my brother took a different route where he, is training to and is kind of actively becoming a pro wrestler.
Awesome.
He was chosen in Dustin Rhodes' second class. So he was taught by Dustin, and that was like a really cool thing to be I obviously wasn't there, but I got to hear about it and everything and support him through that. And then now he, did you watch any TNA
Yeah.
throughout the years?
Hmm.
So Homicide and Hernandez,
Yeah.
obviously LAX. Hernandez also has a school up in San Antonio. So my brother went from being taught by Dustin Rhodes to now he's being taught by Hernandez after
Cool.
he did that. So it's like we always joke about that, like he's going through these people that we've watched like
Sure.
for forever. And so yeah, he's, going through his journey and everything, and then I'm just watching from afar and everything, and especially like I'm such a fan of the AEW style of things. Like I said way at the beginning of the episode, like I talk about it on Twitter all the time, but like if you go to an AEW live show, it's like a party. It's great. I think I've been to like 7 or 8. I was trying to count earlier today. I've been to like 7 or 8 of them now. And every time, like, they always talk about how much they like the Texas crowds and stuff. And so I don't know if that's just a Texas thing, but I sincerely doubt it. Is that you go and it's like people are yelling their heads off. People are like they yell back and forth like in between matches and stuff. Justin Roberts will like it's like a comedy show, and like what I've always heard late night shows are like, where Justin Roberts like warms up the crowd and like introduces you to the ring crew, and it's like a whole thing. It's a much, and like Tony Khan comes out before, I think every episode he's come out before for us. So I think that's just something he does every week.
Yeah.
Comes out and like prepares you for like Dynamite and everything. And every time I make the joke, he comes out and I'll yell at my brother. I'm like, that guy's worth all of us combined. And so like, I just really like the AEW crowd. But it's just a different like feeling. That being said, me and my brother were shocked in a good way by the FU Roman chants, where like it I don't want to brag. I didn't start it by any means necessary, but it was our section that started it.
Nice.
And I like it first because eventually like everybody got it. But I like it first, like the people on the ground on the floor seats, you could see them like turning up, like kind of in disgust. They were like, are they saying the F word? And it's like, it was so funny to be there for that. We just started cracking up. And then have you seen the video since of somebody ringside where it's the view of Pat McAfee, Corey Graves, and Michael Cole reacting to the FU? It's so good. Pat McAfee like can't believe it. He's like looking around, and Corey Graves and Michael Cole just share like this like little smirk across from each other. They're like, oh yeah, it's working.
Nice.
He's got the heat now. So it's great. Like, it was phenomenal. But yeah, wrestling has almost equal. Now, video games are definitely a bigger part of my life for obvious reasons, but almost to an equal part has like always been throughout my life. There's almost always, like I said, since 10 years old, like there's always been wrestling somewhere around or whatever. I mean, there's a Shawn Michaels figure over there. I still haven't met Shawn. I've got his signature in, like books and stuff like that, but like I tweeted about it. I wanted to try to meet him at the Rumble, but he had no like meet and greets or anything, which the man lives in San Antonio. You'd think he'd like, they would set something up, but like, I still want to meet him, but he's like probably the main one that I've just never like met and stuff. And luckily we saw him at like house shows perform and stuff, but
cool.
I don't think I've seen in my adult life him perform, because he did his retirement match like, I don't know when, but it was at the Manias where I wasn't watching. Yeah, like I had to go back and watch both the Taker 1 and 2 match.
Yeah, sorry. Ric Flair was 24. He was like 26.
Yeah, he was 26. Yeah,
sorry,
because he put his career on the line. No, yeah, you're good. Because we watched 24, and then I'm glad that you said that. That's a really good way to put a nail in that. We watched 24. And by 25, we were done in the household with WWE. We were like a TNA household. So I don't know what year that was, but that's a really good way to put it. Because I had to watch later and be like, oh my God, this Taker and Michaels match is phenomenal. Michaels is still my favorite. Just mainly, it's a lot like how we talk about Final Fantasy in my household, where I go, whatever your first Final Fantasy was almost always your favorite Final Fantasy. It's almost always that way. There are, of course, the exceptions, but you hear people like, oh, I played Final Fantasy VII when I was 10, and I've been in love ever since. And, like, that's how it goes. And that's how it is for me and Shawn Michaels. That was, like, the first one I saw. He's got a great moveset. He's phenomenal. And so, yeah, like him and I don't know. I could go on about a lot of my favorite Shawn Michaels matches too. So.
All right. Well, nice. Yeah, I kind of agree with what you're talking about. I'm going to kind of hit on a few points here. The live events. I was very fortunate here where I live. We had like a 3-month span where AEW came 1 month, Impact had Bound for Glory, and then Raw came, and I was able to go to all three. Totally agree on the atmosphere. Like AEW, like you said, everybody's hooping and hollering, and they're doing stuff in the intermission, and I was like, wow, okay. Impact, I was very fortunate to be very close to ringside. I wasn't front row, but I was second row, and those tickets were mad cheap. I was like, oh fuck, okay. But like that was amazing, and like the energy in that room was insane. And then on Raw, like I got closer than I did with AEW, and I still had a blast with it. But yeah, it was a totally different atmosphere. Like we cheered for certain things, and then like the ground floor, they had people like in between when they're actually wrestling, like, okay, let's sit down now. Like everybody was good. Yep. Like I get it. I was like, oh well, that's a little unfortunate, but
it's much more sanctioned.
Exactly.
Events, for sure.
But yeah, they each have their own atmosphere to it. It's a lot of fun, and exciting to see what each product brings to the table for the what they put up. So you mentioned Shawn Michaels. I agree wholeheartedly. I think he's my top favorite too. And along the same lines of like the first thing you see, my history with wrestling is kind of shares parallels with yours, but has a little bit different of starting point. So I don't remember exactly when, but at some time when I was a child, my parents must have had a VHS of wrestling. But the thing that I remember the most, and the first thing I recall of wrestling, is the barbershop. And Michaels throwing Jannetty through. That stuck with me. Of like, awesome. Okay. So he was the guy to keep an eye on. And I had known about it, growing up. Had some figures, and the Macho Man like beat him up buddy, wrestle buddy, so he was around. But then I kind of fell off. And then a little bit after when you popped in, it was just before WrestleMania 23. I think it was that SummerSlam prior. We were at my uncle's house. He had it on, and I was just in from that moment. Like, caught on to Impact. WrestleMania 23 was my first Mania watching. Like, that night, only watched half of it because it was a school night, and then watched the rest because we taped it. And then it's been kind of a ride from there. And yeah, it's been great. And there's been moments of, like, the resurgence and the falling off. Like you said, you don't watch week to week. I'm kind of the same way. I'll watch all the pay-per-views. And then the rest is, Twitter, checking the feeds. Yes. And then, like, What Culture is big for me because I just enjoy, Simon Miller and those guys, their comedy. So catching up that way. And then, like you said, with NXT, with, like, Neville and Zayn and Sasha and Bayley, like, those guys going to NXT, take over Brooklyn, the first one, like, just that moment. Yeah, that was huge. That was a similar thing where we were up there, binoculars, like, there they are.
Dang, yeah, those Brooklyn ones, like all like I think up to like Brooklyn 3, I would say. I don't know about past that, but like those are all like seminal NXT moments. So that's awesome.
Yeah, so going to that first one and seeing Sasha and Bayley totally steal the show there, that was great, and just like being fully engulfed in it since that point has been a lot of fun. And obviously, with the addition of Impact's growth, rise, fall, regrowth, emergence kind of thing. And then, AEW coming on the scene. It's been a fun ride. So with Shawn Michaels being your guy, your number one, who are some other favorites that you do have? And feel free to break this up to like past superstars. And who do you like now across, of course, any brand?
Let's see. I mean, so luckily, I think all of my like favorites I would still say are still around. I don't want to brag here. I don't want to sound like a hipster.
Okay.
But I do want to say that from like step one, I really dug the Acclaimed, and I was like telling my brother, I was like, oh yeah, I like these guys, and like then the whole thing happened with Max Caster and like the controversial rap or whatever, and then he was like doing the weird thing that people didn't know if it was a work or not, where he's like putting his tights on Craigslist. He's like putting his tights on Craigslist, and he's like don't need these anymore or whatever. But he's like selling it really perfectly. And I was like, man, these guys are great. And then they came back and it's just been like hit after hit after hit with Acclaimed. I really dig them. I hate to sound like you know, like a normie here, but Kenny Omega
Okay.
is awesome. I'm a really big fan of the stuff that I've seen of Kenny since then. This is one of those things that I should know a lot more off the top of my head of ones that I enjoy. I'm trying to think of like WWE specific ones.
Sure.
I mean, Cody's like a cheat. And so I don't want to say Cody because that's like everybody's on the Cody train right now. But I did see like I think everybody felt this way, and I kind of think, no offense to the Tulsa crowd, I kind of think it was just Tulsa was kind of dead all night. Because like Cody came out and I saw so many people like, oh, the crowd's already turning on Cody. And it's like, I think the crowd just kind of sucks tonight. Like, cause that was like all night. They didn't really see him until like the end. Oh, well, that's a great example. I mean, AJ Styles is phenomenal. No pun intended. Has like always been. I really dug him in TNA and everything. Oh man, I've always really liked Sting. It's very funny because Sting is such a funny example of like I've never really cared for his matches that much, but he's like a great example of just a character that captures you or whatever.
Sure.
Because I'm just like I remember in the TNA days, I just loved Sting. And a really big thing in TNA in 2006 and 2007 was Jeff Jarrett and Sting.
Mm-hmm.
And I will never forget, it was one of the first things that we saw at TNA was Jeff Jarrett running out and spraying gasoline in Sting's eyes. And that was like a whole thing. And Sting was like blinded forever. It was like a whole thing. So yeah, Sting I really liked. Edge is a huge one for me. I've been a big Edge fan. I've been a Matt Hardy fan for forever. Speaking of Edge, so that's like most. I think that covers kind of most of them. I have definitely a like style. I would say. I mean,
Sure.
Jericho is another huge one. Now, it's funny how Jericho. I don't know if I'd be curious to hear your opinion on Jericho because I feel like over the years and even in very fast succession, Jericho has gone from wow, this guy's incredible. And then he goes to New Japan. People are like, wow, this guy is incredible. And he like does the AEW stuff. People are like, wow, this guy's amazing or whatever. And then it seems like he dipped or whatever. And then like, especially recently, before all the Punk stuff, I felt like his stock online was like dipping lower and lower with like the Inner Circle. And it was like, it's like, okay, Jericho, we get it. You're in like every third segment every week on AEW. Like, we get it. And then like the Punk stuff happened, and it was like he's one of the ones that like really stepped up, it sounds like, and was like, no, like we're gonna, you know, like this could be taken away at any time. Like we need to treat this with respect and everything. And now it feels like his stock is high again online. At least through my eyes, I don't know why, but he cracks me up with like the wizard gimmick. Cracked me up. I mean, he only had it for a couple of weeks, and then it's back every time he does the fireball. But he is so good at reinvention and everything, and like I really dug. I mean, he's like intrinsically linked in his WWE career with Michaels. He's had you know a few really great Shawn Michaels feuds, and then you know he went overseas and was popping off over there. I used to have growing up one year for my birthday, my brother got me it's a great gift. There's no way he could have known this. A very poorly burned best of Chris Jericho in Mexico and Japan.
Oh.
Like really early career Jericho that when you watch it, you can very easily tell it was one of those VHS DVD combos that they were burning from a VHS to a DVD. And like the VHS is like really bad quality. You'll get like skips, and you'll get, you know, it sounds like a VHS. It sounds like you're going and like the commentators are like Chris Jericho, and it's like I can only hear like one every three words, but it's one of those that I still have it back there just because it's a hilarious thing to go back and watch. So yeah, I would say right behind Michaels is funny enough is Jericho, but everybody else I listed is somewhere intermingling in there.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you kind of alluded to it. Jericho and Michaels shared some good rivalries together, some good bouts. What are some of your favorite matches that you've watched? Across,
Just,
in general, yeah.
just anybody.
Anybody, yeah.
So we said it earlier. Taker, Michaels. I like 25 better than 26. A lot of people
I
say
agree.
26 is better, but I definitely like 25 better. Man, there's definitely some obvious ones. I'm gonna sound like a normie here, but CM Punk and Cena at Money in the Bank is like one of those that you can show somebody, at least in my opinion, because I'm a really big fan. Part of wrestling for me, and probably for a lot of people, I bet, is the atmosphere of it. Like, sure, the storytelling's great, the athletic acumen, if I'm using that word correctly, is great. And if you ask my brother, I bet that the performing art of it, oh my gosh, the performing art of it, and he does not look happy. And like the athleticism and everything is like most of it. For me, a lot of it is crowd energy and stuff like that. And so like the show of it. Growing up, I loved. Now at my age, I know why I liked it, and it's very funny. But like growing up, I loved the video packages.
Yep.
Now I know, and that's what I do for a career. Now I know that probably had a pretty good hand in leading to where I am today, as far as my editing sensibilities and what I think is cool in an edit and stuff. And so like the crowd energy in Punk and Cena in 2011 is like unmatched. It's right up there with One Night Stand 2006. It's right up there with Rock and Hogan and 17. And so like a lot of my favorite ones are funny enough, not even like the quality of the wrestling, but like the quality of the crowd and the moment that surrounded it, which is kind of a weird take. But like, I mean, I'm trying to think of one like for the wrestling of it. Mania 19 of Michaels and Jericho is a solid match, is a really good match. And I really enjoyed that. This is one of those questions that looking back, I'm going to be like, oh my God, there's so many that I could choose.
Sure.
That I should have chosen. One that really sticks out, again, this is kind of a normie answer, but nowadays it's becoming less of a normie answer. I would say Daniel, Styles, and Joe from TNA, the Triple Threat, is phenomenal, is awesome. It's a really good, it's a solid triple threat one, but like it showcases the Fosbury flop very well. So I'm a big fan of that. There's a lot of TNA matches that looking back, I'll probably be like, oh, I loved that. I was a big fan of Jeff Hardy in TNA. It's really funny because when you get into wrestling, obviously you're watching what you're watching now, but then you'll go back and watch, and it's never been easier than now. But back then it was like, hey, give me this WrestleMania anthology for my Christmas or whatever. And they would give me like this one, which had, I think it was WrestleMania 15 through 20. I'm almost positive that was the 5. Or no, through 21 for sure, because 21 was in there. But anyway, WrestleMania 17 got watched so much. And so I knew a lot of Jeff Hardy from there, but I got introduced to Jeff Hardy through TNA. And so it was really funny. A lot of my early Jeff Hardy memories, I had a TNA Jeff Hardy action figure before I had a WWE Jeff Hardy action figure, which is really funny to look back on. And like a lot of his TNA career, I actually can't think of one specific match, but I do remember really enjoying a lot of his matches. And, you know, I said it earlier with AEW, but shout out to the TNA tunnels. Just iconic, amazing. Yep. Because Jeff Hardy very much specifically used the tunnels coming out. Like that was one of the very specific ones where they would go like in the tunnel and he would like come out.
The little lights around too. Yep.
Yeah, it was amazing. So yeah, I feel like I'm disappointing on this question specifically because now that I feel like I'm a bad wrestling fan. I gotta nail down some top matches.
I mean, there's a lot out there. I don't blame you.
There is, yeah. There's a lot. I've only got like one thing over there anymore. I used to have this huge collection of wrestling DVDs growing up, and then I sold most of them off, and my brother was very unhappy with me that day. I don't think I sold them for a very good price either, if I recall correctly. I think that was a lot of the reason he was mad. He was like, I can't believe you sold those.
No, I mean, I think you nailed it on the head. Like, matches that connect can be those ones with the audience reaction. And that's, you know, they built to that moment. Something in the story compelled people to be intrinsically tied to, you know, what was happening. And we're seeing it now, obviously, with, you know, Sami and Roman, this whole build of like a character to get behind, new character to get, or new person, like respecting them in a different way, because we've seen, you know, Roman tried to be pushed in this light before, but not on the heel side, but now he has, like, people like him. And obviously with the Usos and Solo Sikoa coming up through NXT and making an impact automatically up on the main roster, like, these are characters you get behind, and that groundswell, that audience reaction, yeah, it adds that whole nother layer to the match. So I think that's great that you pointed that out, because yeah, well, not everybody, but a lot of people can just go out there and do this, do that, do the thing, you know, whoop, but that's something that is another layer to it that makes it special, that not everybody can do, or don't give the time to make it this kind of moment, or, you know, get people to react emotionally, I guess, to the thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Was it the North American title that Solo Sikoa held for a day?
Yeah, and then he relinquished it, or did the,
they did
yeah,
it for the press
whoop,
conference.
yep. And then Carmelo got it back. Yeah.
Every time, like, I'm sure Sikoa is a great wrestler. Every time he gets brought up, my brother and I were like, yeah, he held that title for a day.
Yeah.
They did it just for the photo op, so everybody in the bloodline would have something. And then they kicked him out.
Yep.
Kicked him out of the title.
There goes your planning for you. We need this guy. Son of but
that was so crazy in the one of the calls that just happened, where Shawn Michaels just straight up said, he was like, yeah, I don't hear from Hunter that much, but when they need something, he'll call. And I'm like, wow, you guys don't talk? Like, it seems like they would be like especially with Triple H's, you know, connection to NXT, you'd think
Sure.
he would be like, hey, are you doing stuff good down there? What's happening?
Yeah,
I guess he's a busy man now.
I don't know. I thought well, maybe this is just, you know, the internet talking, because wrestling journalists totally do that. Like, I thought it sounded like they were going to let people know ahead of time, like, okay, we're not going to bring you up to the main roster until we have a plan. So, like, maybe that was kind of, I know this is alluded to the last topic with the Rumble, but maybe that wasn't why there wasn't a lot of NXT representation, like a Braun Breaker. Like, maybe that's why only Roxanne, Indy, and Zoe got there. Maybe we have a plan for them to kind of go up to the main roster, and this is just a little bit like, hey, here's this person, so you know, in 3 months' time, like, oh, it's that person.
Yeah, that's a good call. That's a good point. That's something we noticed while we were sitting in the crowd, where we were like, wow, the women's Rumble has a lot of NXT people in there. Like, it's so crazy, because the 2017 one is the really famous Ty Dillinger 10 moment. The first time he came out to 10. And so, like, that was a huge moment. I loved Ty Dillinger. I feel bad that Sean Spears hasn't been on TV. He's another one that, if you would have asked me, you know, 2 years ago, I probably would have mentioned Sean Spears on my list. But I don't know if he's still contracted at AEW or what's going on there, but the man has not appeared on my television.
As far as I know, I think he still is. I know he just recently had his child with Peyton.
Oh, yeah.
Or
okay. Yeah.
Cassie.
Yes.
But yeah, other than that, yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. So,
yeah.
I mean, he's doing flatbacks with Breeze, so hopefully they're happy with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.